Hi guys, this is the Conversion and Density Lab warm-up overview here. Sorry I can't be with you there today, but we wanted to work on some graphing skills before you have to graph your data in today's lab. So, things that I want you to look for. First of all, time on the x-axis in hours, make sure you have your units. Total water lost on the y-axis in milliliters, again, make sure you have your units. If you mess those up and you switched them, make sure you grab a new sheet and redo it, or erase and change it up because they need to be in the right place. The title, water lost over time. I chose a descriptive title. This tells me what I'm looking at in the graph. Leaky faucets would be a really cute title, but it doesn't tell me what I'm reading, so it's not very useful. Please make your titles useful. If you look at the axes, they go up in increments. Every line on the y-axis, for example, will represent the same number of milliliters. I chose 25, you might have done 30 or 50. Whatever you choose, just make sure you stay consistent. Same thing with the x-axis. I went up by 2s, which made me kind of blow my margin here, but if you went up by 3s, you would have fit in here. But as long as every increment is the same, we're good. Graph your data with very obvious points. Add a line of best fit. Just use a ruler, eyeball it, try and make it so that the points are averaging as close as possible to that line as you can. So I have a couple points below the line, I have a couple points above, slightly above the line, and hopefully that average distance is minimized, the distance from that line. Okay, now we're going to flip it over, and I want you to take a minute and just briefly write those 3 questions. So number 1, the equation for a line. Literally write the words, equation for a line, and we'll go through the answers here in a second. 2, circle 2 points and determine slope. So we're going to use, I'm going to change this. It's not equation for a line, it's equation for slope that I want here, because that's what I want you to figure out in the next question. Circle 2 points, determine slope. And then 3, what does the slope represent for this graph? So take a second, write those down. Maybe the sub can pause this if I'm going too fast. All right, with the slope, if you're trying to find the slope of a line, you're going to do rise over run. Okay? So most people, when I put equation for a line, that would be y equals mx plus b. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for rise over run, which also you might have seen in the past, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you're doing your vertical change divided by your horizontal change. Okay? All right, number 2, circle 2 points and determine the slope. So on the front, I want you to go back and I want you to circle a couple of points. Now in my graph, I have 2 really nice points, right here and right here, where my line actually goes through some crosshairs. Okay? Sometimes you'll be able to use a data point from your data, and sometimes you won't be able to use a data point. I would recommend trying to find those crosshairs, because then you have very clear numbers. Okay? Now I'm going to use those 2 points to find my slope. Now, here's what I don't want you to do. Okay? Do not count squares. Don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, and my rise is 4. Because my rise isn't 4. I went from 100 to 200. Okay? 4 lines in my graph is 100. So on my slope calculation, my rise is 100 milliliters. Okay? My run, again, don't count boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is not 5 hours. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay? Make sure that you use the scale on your graph. Okay? So 10 hours. 100 divided by 10, for me, my slope happens to be a nice even 10 milliliters per hour. Please don't write this if you don't have the exact same graph as me. Please don't write this. I want you to circle 2 points from your graph and use them to make your slope, or to calculate your slope. Okay? If the sub needs to pause this so that you can do that, please pause this at that time, and then we'll do number 3. So question 3 here says, what does the slope represent? Now we're talking about a faucet that is leaking throughout the day and the rate is changing throughout the day. But the slope for this line, because this is line of best fit, is going to represent the average leaking rate the average leaking rate. Okay? It's not the average for the whole day. It's just the average rate at any given point during the day if you were to take all those rates. All right, so we've got milliliters per hour. That's a rate. That's why we have and it's a leaking rate because it's milliliters of water from a faucet. Today's lab is going to have units here in your slope. Whatever your Y unit is over whatever your X unit is. Please use that to determine what your slope represents. Thanks.